basic at the bank. Pushing foreigns in the city, but I move like putters when I'm out of state. We've been up for a while. I can never hit the brakes. Double BS on my body, I got diamonds covering my whole face. We can never relate. Basic at the bank. Whoa, pushing foreigns in the city, but I move like putters when I'm out of state. We've been up for a while. I can never hit the brakes. Double BS on my body, I got diamonds covering my whole face. We can never relate.
This video was sponsored by Sonarworks. Totally forget walking back and forth from your car, transferring files from your phone to your PC to check your mix and make sure it translates everywhere. It's all right here. Easily calibrate any speakers you have, any headphones you have, even in really bad listening conditions. So yeah, watch to the end for a demo segment of how I use it personally. So yeah. Yo, what is good with you guys? Are you tired of hiring people to mix and then just getting absolute garbage back? I'm gonna go over everything I do to get a professional mix in 2023 and 2024, 2025, you know, if you're watching this in the future. So yeah, let's get into it. So I do use a lot of third-party plugins, but I will provide alternatives for all of those. As you can see, everything's already organized and prepared. If you wanna see how I prepare my vocals, it's super simple. Just watch this video, making sure there's no dead noise, mouth sounds, or breathing, or anything like that. I take all that out. So I have everything divided into 2 tracks right here, of course, just because that's how the artist recorded them. This is just a hook that my boy 𝕊𝕆𝔹𝕆 wanted mixed, and then same thing with this ad-libs right here, and then this is just my tag. This is my beat. But yeah, let's start from the very top. The beat, when I first drag it in, 2 things I'll always check, and I always recommend you check. If it sounds muffled or muddy, I recommend taking out between 100 Hz and 500 Hz, the bass to low mid section right here. And then over here, you can see I actually reduce the high end, because if you're having trouble fitting in your vocals, it's probably due to a lot of high end kind of crowding everything out. So I would recommend reducing that a little bit, only if it needs it, only if it's already super loud. Next, I often image it. I use 𝕊𝕆𝔹𝕆 to do that, but they have a standalone that's actually free. Pretty much the exact same thing by the same company. Turning up these knobs widens it, and then turning them down narrows it. So I often narrow the low mids just a little bit. The bass I always narrow. High mids I always spread out. So this is before. So it's an ever so slight difference, but we're gonna widen it more later. I'm gonna show you guys how to make some pretty crazy vocals.
But honey said be careful, you gon' be a product of what you create. Label told me set a budget, I don't know the meaning, we do not relate.
Let me mute all the wet effects I have on the vocals. The very first thing I always do is I start EQing it. Like I said, I watch for 2 things. I watch for a lot of high end, a lot of harshness, and muddiness. Without any effects, it sounds like this.
But honey said be careful, you gon' be a product of what you create.
It is a pretty harsh vocal. Let me just open up a regular EQ. It does not matter what EQ you use. What I would do here is I would duck the high end a little bit.
Label told me set a budget, I don't know the meaning.
And we're gonna add it back later. But right now we need to kind of do some damage control on this vocal.
Label told me set a budget, I don't know the meaning, we do not relate.
So there's harshness there. So we're going to turn all of this down just a little bit. This is just a super rough starting EQ.
Label told me set a budget, I don't know the meaning, we do not relate.
So for example, if you have a lot of harshness, it typically lives in the high mid area right here. And if you have really boomy vocals, definitely kind of remove the muddiness, like I explained earlier on the beat, like around 300 to 500. But he actually needs more boom in his voice because he has a really high voice. That's essentially what that EQ was right here. Then I added a Maximus. So what I do is I click preset and I add the SoundID preset A, and then I go to bands right here, and then you turn down the high end because sometimes it's way too harsh, and that's where the problem with SoundID comes in.
Label told me set a budget, I don't know the meaning, we do not relate.
Until it's nice and soft. You want it to be pretty dull, and then we're gonna turn up the high end later. And also notice all the body added to his vocals. We're gonna fix that later.
Label told me set a budget, I don't know the meaning, we do not relate.
So that's pretty good right there. Now we're gonna add a compressor. You can use any compressor really, but I seriously recommend RVox. It's so easy. I love the way it compresses the vocals.
Label told me set a budget, I don't know the meaning, we do not relate.
So now your vocals sound super squished, really muddy. Don't worry about that. We're gonna fix that later. We're going through several stages, right? We're basically building our bass right here, and then add a de-esser. You can use any de-esser, but I do strongly recommend this de-esser, the Waves de-esser.
Label told me set a budget, I don't know the meaning, we do not relate.
That really soften the S's. Often the S's are around 8500 Hz. So now we have a super muddy vocal now. I promise, stick with me. This is what you want to do. You're still building your bass. The last thing we're gonna add is a virtual mix rack. This is from Slate Digital. You can use any other compressor. Make sure it's modeled after the FG2A because this compressor really fixes those peaks.
These Russian garments on my body, promise you won't find this in the USA.
And then we're gonna add a revival, down. You don't need to add more thickness if you already have very boomy vocals, but I do add a little bit of shimmer.
These Russian garments on my body, promise you won't find this in the USA. I've been on top of the world for a while.
Now we work on controlling that low end and starting to actually craft a nice sounding vocal. Basically all those steps before give it a nice body. It really fills in your vocals and helps it come out to be really thick. Roll off a little bit. I roll off to about 100 hertz. That's pretty safe for me. Now I don't do a cut. Right now all I'm doing is I'm just rolling off that low end. As you can see right here, I'm getting rid of the muddy frequencies in the low mid area, and then I'm also getting rid of some of the mids.
These Russian garments on my body, promise you won't find this in the USA.
So as you can see, it's really coming together now. Without the Maximus and all these compressors, it sounds like this.
These Russian garments on my body, promise you won't find this in the USA.
So if you add a little bit too much body and then take it out later, the vocal ends up being super thick, and it's always worked out for me.
These Russian garments on my body, promise you won't find this in the USA.
Maximus is doing a lot of the work here. And then I add another EQ after that to do more fine tuning. Me personally, I like to open up several EQs and just have a blank slate each time. I pretty much did the exact same thing, except this time I did boost the high end just a little bit.
These Russian garments on my body, promise you won't find this in the USA.
Okay, so now we're really getting somewhere where we have a nice thick vocal. Any boxy frequencies typically live in the mids. 500 and 1000 is where I often find them. This was a 600.
These Russian garments on my body, promise you won't find this in the USA.
That kind of sound right there, the weird room sound. And then like I said, I roll off the low end. I find that to be a lot more natural. Like I said, you can always cut it if you want. Now I actually tune my vocals. I actually use Metatune. I do like the interface of this one a lot more. It's different, you know what I mean?
These Russian garments on my body, promise you won't find this in the USA. I've been on top of the world for a while.
Now, some of my secret sauce too is Vocal Synth 2. And the preset I use, added texture right here. And what this is going to do is it's going to widen your vocal and soften that high end. So if you have a really thin sounding vocal, this will thicken it up some. So when you first click on added texture right here, make sure to turn off vocoder, make sure to turn off distort, turn off the delay, and then turn it down in the mixer rack. That's really important. And then the width right here, you can widen it just a little bit more even.
These Russian garments on my body, promise you won't find this in the USA. I've been on top of the world for a while.
YoungBoy's engineer does this a lot in his tracks. His last album, you can really hear the width in his vocals. So this is before.
These Russian garments on my body, promise you won't find this in the USA.
And this is after.
These Russian garments on my body, promise you won't find this in the USA.
Then I just add a soothe. And all this does is removes a little bit of harsh frequencies. You don't need to do this. This is just an extra thing I do. This plugin is really expensive.
Pushing foreigns in the city, but I move like putters when I'm out of state. We've been here for a while, I can never hit the brakes. Double VS on my body, I got diamonds covering my whole face. We can never relate.
And as you can see here, I like to wrap my effects to different tracks because I often, run out of slots pretty much. So all you do is you just click on your vocal track and then just click that right there. And that's literally it. And you can see here I did that for my reverb, my low double, my delay, and then my second delay. But let's just break it down. The reverb I use is Arturia Rev Plate 140. Is a plate reverb by Arturia. You can use the stock fruity reverb. Whenever you do this, you turn the wet all the way up and then dry all the way down, okay? You only do that when you're sending it out to a track like that. So now you'll get pure reverb.
Been here for a while, been here for a while.
And then you adjust the mix by just turning it up and down.
Been here for a while.
And if you added any dry, the vocal would double up.
Been here for a while.
And you don't want to do that. Also make sure you turn up the low cut. Your reverb can sound very muddy. And I'll show you what I mean in this plugin too, because this plugin also has a low cut too, and that's what this thing is. So let's turn the reverb up super high so you can hear it. If you turn this off,
been here for a while.
It just sounds a little bit muddy. But if you turn it up like that,
been here for a while.
It sounds crystal clear, so make sure to do that. I like it like right about here.
I can never hit the brakes. Double VS on my body, I got diamonds covering my whole face. We can never relate.
Next, I add a little Ultra Boy. This is an extra thing I do, and you do need a third-party plugin to do this. There's really no way around it. I click through the presets until I find the low octave double right here. Turn the mix all the way up. Same concept with the reverb. All you're going to want to do is just adjust the mix level right here.
We've been here for a while. I can never hit the brakes.
Right? And then I just turn it down a lot, like right here.
I can never hit the brakes. Double VS on my body, I got diamonds covering my whole face. We can never relate.
Now I just added delay. This delay preset is pretty crazy. It's pretty advanced, not gonna lie. So I will link all these presets in the description for you guys to download and just run them. You can just buy all these plugins and run my exact presets and everything, just to show you guys what it is. Echo Boy delay.
Pushing foreigns in the city, but I'm
and then I distort that delay.
Pushing foreigns in the city.
Any distortion to do that with. You have to make sends for this delay. You have to link it like this. And you want to make sure on all of these, your mix levels turn up all the way to just only edit the delay, right? And that way you can start doing fancy stuff like EQing the reverb and adding distortion to the delay only and not the vocal. So yeah, that's what I did here. And then I added a reverb to that. You can hear that delay. Then I added a chorus. So as you can see, it makes it a bit wavy. And then I add one EQ to remove some low end. So now it sounds a lot more clear. And then I did another EQ right here. So I removed more low end and really boosted that high end. And I really boosted the presence right here to basically make it just cut through the mix more. I sidechained it, but really what you need to do is just go to comp right here. I assume it stands for compress, and then move this up just one. It should just be one, right? Turn the threshold super low and the knee super high. So now the delay will only play when the vocal is not playing.
Pushing foreigns in the city, but I move like 𝕊𝕆 when I'm out of state. We've been up for a while. I can never hit the brakes.
So it ducks in and out pretty much. And then this second delay right here is just really just a very simple delay, the Echo Boy delay. Pick any delay plugin and set it to 1/8 for that really fast delay. Just like that. I really spiced it up by automating it. I did that by just right clicking on it, create automation clip. And that allows you to just turn up the delay whenever you want it. And you can see right here, I added it in certain spots.
Duffel bass it out of bank. Whoa. Pushing foreigns in the city, but I move like 𝕊𝕆 when I'm out of state. We've been up for a while. I can never hit the brakes. Double VS on my body. I got diamonds covering my whole face. We can never relate. No, we do not relate.
So yeah, that's a tip right there for you guys. So yeah, now that we've mixed the main vocals, you want to make them fit in with the mix, right? So I did this by using this vocal duct thing right here. And so if I turn it off, you'll notice that the vocals might not fit as well.
In the city, but I move like 𝕊𝕆 when I'm out of state. We've been up for a while.
And this is with it.
In the city, but I move like 𝕊𝕆 when I'm out of state. We've been up for a while.
So it might not be too noticeable, but it does make a difference, and I'll show you how I do it. This really makes vocals fit in any tracks. This beat was already kind of built to fit vocals, but for beats that don't fit vocals, this will really help. So just solo all your main vocals right here, okay? Turn off all of your wet effects. Anything that has to do with reverb or delay, turn it off. You want dry but processed vocals. So now we have this.
But honey said be careful, you gonna be a product of what you create.
Click on this right here. Go disc recording and then render ARM tracks to WAV files, just like that. And that is going to give you this right here, a big rendered out version of all your vocals right here. So what you're gonna do is you're gonna click that and you're gonna route it to a channel called Signal. Hide this right here, shift click to lock it, and we're gonna leave it on at all times. And you're gonna wanna route it. You're gonna turn it all the way down. So now that signal is going to that mixer, but you're not gonna be able to hear it. It's gonna be inaudible. Open up a patcher. Presets right here, multi-band sidechain. Map, right click, outputs, audio, signal. That'll be your signal track. This second dot right here, move it down where it says connect sidechain here, just like that. So now you have set up all this super complicated sidechain. Like I said, make sure to lock this on. So what you've done is created a mold of your own vocals, and it's gonna duck pretty much. So if you turn this up, basically what it's doing is it's making room for your vocals based off of the signal of your own vocals. So if you turn it up all the way, you'll see what it's doing. But you're going to want to turn it down a ton. So yeah, that's what that was.
Whoa, pushing foreigns in the city, but I move like 𝕊𝕆 when I'm out of state. We've been up for a while. I can never hit the brakes. Double VS on my body. I got diamonds covering my whole face. We can never relate.
Before we get into ad-libs, let's add a few different effects. A few reverse reverbs right here. Another one right here. And basically, this is just a cool transition into your vocals.
Remember honey said be careful, you gonna be a product of what you create.
I cut the first vowel. slap it like right here on a random track, right? And I click on make unique. So now I have a unique version of it. So it's not going to affect the original. And then what I do is I route it to my preset right here, which is my reverse reverb preset. All I do to make this reverse reverb preset is I go file, save mixer track as, and I drag it over here. Rearrange a few things, and I delete the soothe. And then I add this reverb called lustrous plates. Make sure it's at the very bottom. The only reason I delete like the soothe and stuff like that is to make room for this. And I use a steel plate preset. You can do this with any reverb. Whatever reverb you use, turn up the decay all the way. This right here, it's DEC. Now we have this. Render this out the same way you did the main vocals. Click right here, disrecording, just like that. And then what you're gonna get is this right here. And you're just gonna wanna reverse it. I'll leave that preset in the description too.
Remember honey said be careful, you gon' be a product that when you create. Label told me set a budget, I don't know the meaning, we do not relate. These Russian garments on my body, promise you won't find this in the USA. I've been on top of the world for a while. Duffel base it at the bay, whoa. Pushing foreigns in the city, but I move like putters when I'm out of state.
So I'm sure you heard all those ad-libs now, and these are my ad-lib tracks right here. Just do the same thing. I do file, save mixer track as, and I move it over to the ad-libs right here. I never make a completely new mixer track. The EQ, the Maximus, the compressor, that's all the same. I did take out the de-esser to make room for the 𝕊𝕉𝔹𝕆. Typically ad-libs are gonna be highly filtered anyway, so you're not really gonna be able to hear the harsh S's, so I don't worry about it. The low octave double, and I turn the mix up to like that much. Then I add that compressor again, just the same mix rack. Original EQ that was in the old one, just the same exact EQ because I copied everything over. And then for the second EQ, I do a really tight filter that looks exactly like this, okay? I want the main part of the ad-libs to accompany like between 1 and 3,000 hertz. Super quiet, but yeah. Then just auto-tune, of course, same auto-tune. And then a chorus, just that same chorus as we used earlier. And then I add a reverb. Like I said, you can use any reverb, any chorus plugin, doesn't matter. I use this reverb right here. I do use a lot of reverb here. Make sure to low cut it, and then I turn up the gain a lot to just make it a lot louder because it was pretty quiet. Just like that, and that's how I made the ad-libs. And then this thing right here is just this random sound effect he sent me. He's like, he made that using the same reverse reverb technique I just showed y'all earlier.
I've been on top of the world for a while. Duffel base it at the bay, whoa. Pushing foreigns in the city, but I move like putters when I'm out of state. We've been up for a while. I can never hit the brakes. Double VS on my body, I got diamonds covering my whole face. We can never relate.
So for the master, let me just break this down real quick. So I add another RVox, and this just kind of glues everything together just a little bit more.
Duffel base it at the bay, whoa. Pushing foreigns in the city, but I move like putters when I'm out of state.
And then I add an EQ, and I do super light changes, all right? Once we add our mastering agent, it's gonna really amplify this EQ right here. So I just boost the high end a little bit and take out just a tiny bit of the muddiness that I was still hearing.
Duffel base it at the bay, whoa. Pushing foreigns in the city, but I move like putters when I'm out of state.
And then I added an Ozone 10. This is the newest Ozone. All Ozone is just like a plugin suite, EQs and limiters and maximizers. So let me turn off all these other units right here and just start with the very beginning. So first I just added an EQ, and you can see right here, I just boost a little bit of the high, take out a bit of that harshness right here, and then remove some of the bass. If you can't get your track loud, it's probably because you have a little bit too much bass.
Duffel base it at the bay, whoa. Pushing foreigns in the city, but I move like putters when I'm out of state.
And then I added an imager. Funny enough, I actually ended up reducing some of those frequencies because it was actually a bit too wide. And then I just widened this right here.
Duffel base it at the bay, whoa. Pushing foreigns in the city, but I move like putters when I'm out of state. We've been up for a while. I can never.
Then I just added a dynamic EQ, and this is kind of like Soothe. It kind of automatically reduces those frequencies whenever they get too loud. And I just removed some muddiness and also some harshness right around 4,000 hertz and then right around 500 hertz.
Duffel base it at the bay, whoa. Pushing foreigns in the city, but I move like putters when I'm out of state. We've been up for a while.
And then of course I reduced a little bit the high end. It seemed like there was just a bit of fuzzy high end that I didn't really like. So yeah, then I add a vintage limiter. And this is my technique for getting my tracks really loud. I move the ceiling down to 2.5, character down super low, 0.50. And I use an analog preset right here. Compress it as much as I can before I hear any kind of artifacts.
Duffel base it at the bay, whoa. Pushing foreigns in the city, but I move like putters when I'm out of state. We've been up for a while. I can never hit the brakes. Double VS on my body, I got diamonds covering my whole face. We can never
You can see the pumping happening, the little blue line, and that's perfect. Now I finish it off with a maximizer. And the only settings I mess with are the IRC4. I change that to transient, threshold to normally always about -3. Use your ears. And then I move the ceiling down to -0.2. 0.0 often isn't actually 0.0. So just to be safe, let's just move it down. And I turn this up to about 2.
Whoa, pushing foreigns in the city, but I move like putters when I'm out of state. We've been up for a while. I can never hit the brakes. Double VS on my body. I got diamonds covering my whole face. We can never relate. No.
Finally, I just throw in a 𝕊𝕌𝔹𝕊 loudness meter just to try everything out to make sure I'm hitting the loudness I want. I typically master to like -9, and what you're going to want to look at is the integrated LUFS right here. -14 is total lie. Don't listen to people who master to -14. It's way too quiet. No real mastering engineer masters to -14. So let's see where we're at.
Whoa, pushing foreigns in the city, but I move like putters when I'm out of state. We've been up for a while. I can never hit the brakes. Double VS on my body. I got diamonds covering my whole face. We can never relate.
And as you can see, we're at -7.5. And then this is also a super important part of the whole process, SoundID Reference. Also the sponsor of this video. I'm really super excited to go over this. This allows you to calibrate your speakers, calibrate your headset. So if you have some speakers that aren't really that good, you know what I mean? They send you a mic, just like this, and it allows you to calibrate everything to correct any sound coloration or inaccuracies. And what I use it for is the translation check. This is amazing. I'm so grateful that they added this. Huge upgrade from their Reference 4, which is their old software. Don't get me wrong, Reference 4 was still great, but this is just a step up. Basically, it'll simulate other speakers to make sure it translates.
Whoa, pushing foreigns in the city, but I move like putters when I'm out of state. We've been up for a while. I can never hit the brakes.
A laptop.
Whoa, pushing foreigns in the city, but I move like putters when I'm out of state.
Your average smartphone.
Whoa, pushing foreigns in the city, but I move like putters when I'm out of state. We've been up for a while.
AirPods is super helpful.
Whoa, pushing foreigns in the city, but I move like putters when I'm out of state. We've been up for a while. I can never hit the brakes. Double VS on my body. I got diamonds covering my whole face. We can never relate.
I've already tweaked it based off of this, but for example, if I hear like the hi-hats are super loud, sometimes that often happens. There might be way too much bass. The car check is really good for bass, and if it has way too much bass, then it'll be very obvious. I'll just put this at the very end of my mastering chain. You want to keep it right here. You want to enable calibration right here, and you want to play the track and then make adjustments as needed. I felt like it could have been a bit more crispy, so I did raise the high end while it was playing, and that's what that was. And I also use a flat. Basically what this does is it really flattens the frequency response of your headphones to truly flat, because no headphones are truly flat. None.
Whoa, pushing foreigns in the city, but I move like putters when I'm out of state. We've been up for a while. I can never hit the brakes. Whoa, pushing foreigns in the city, but I move like putters when I'm out of state. We've been up for a while. I can never hit the brakes. Double VS on my body. I got diamonds covering my whole face. We can never relate.
So this will really help you from going too far. If you have too much bass or too much high end, you can calibrate your AirPods Pros and it'll tell you straight off that it's suited for listening, not mixing. But if you select the profile, it will balance it out for you. It is a really useful, unique tool, especially the fact that you can calibrate any speakers as well. I'll leave SoundID in the description for you guys. You can download the free demo that they have, and I'll actually be giving away 1 copy of this plugin. All you do is just leave a comment, and in a few days after the video drops, I'll pick one. If you guys got something from this tutorial, please let me know in the comments. And yeah, let me know what y'all want next. Till next time.